In this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, me and my guy, Richard Stayman, Mr. Mavs Draft, we are going to share our thoughts on the recent ESPN mock draft that just came out yesterday. There's some surprises, some stuff that we agree with, we disagree with. But in any mock draft, there are going to be some things that make you want to scratch your head, but we're not here to necessarily debate it. We're just going to share our thoughts. Stay tuned. And this episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. A championship team is about each player being the perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. So for parts that fit, head to eBay Motors and check for the green check. Look for the green check. Stay in the game with eBay Motors, guaranteed fit. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items apply. Exclusions only. Big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. I am your host, Rafael Barlowe, with my co-host, Richard Stayman. Season is officially over in college basketball. The NBA regular season is over. We don't necessarily know the lottery results, but we know which teams are in the lottery. We know which teams have the best odds. And a lot of people are putting out mock drafts, and I know you have one that we're going to discuss later on. Is it a mock or a big board?
Big board.
Big board. All right. And then ESPN just came out with one, and you were the first person that let me know about it. You sent me a text, and you were, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess you were blown away by some of the names that you saw on their mock. But before we get into that, how is everything going your way, and are you still doing deep dives on film?
Yeah, I've been going more in on the scouting reports and stuff, and starting the weekly community mocks. So for the next, I think it's 10 weeks, something like that, 8-10 weeks, there'll be a community mock every single week. It generally has been pretty accurate because it accounts for the randomness that one GM can think this way, and it changes the entire draft. So that's kind of been what I've been pushing for lately.
If I had the time, I'd do it. Man, I've been so busy lately. I've been going from gym to gym to gym, getting pre-draft content. Man, I have so much footage, and so many players have given me access to their workouts. So I'm looking forward to putting this all out. And actually, so let's get right into it. So I was actually with Gigi Jackson filming him work out yesterday when you sent me the text that ESPN had him at number 27. And I know we are both pretty high on Gigi. I have him in the lottery, and I was shocked. And I was actually there, and I showed him and the people around him as trainers, like, hey, this is where ESPN has you at number 27. Are we missing something? Are they missing something?
I mean, I've heard the intel's fine on him. There's no like red flags outside of the whole Instagram live thing, and just general. I mean, he's a little immature, but also he played a month of the season at 17 years old. I'd be stunned if he falls this far. I think the combine is going to make such a big difference for him, especially even if he has this like the slightest of positive outings, he's going to skyrocket back into that top 20 closer to the lottery. I don't understand why he'd be at 27. And I'm not blaming ESPN. I don't think this is an ESPN thing. I think this is just a lot of people have him past 20, and I personally, I just can't get there.
So I've heard some of the same things about the intel, and I can't sit here and say that I've been around him or I know him. I've only been around him, I guess, 3 days now. But I tell you this much. He is a kid. And I say a kid in a good way. It's like this energetic, bubbly personality. Funny story. So I saw that he was working out here in Dallas, and I saw it on his Instagram, and I sent him a message on Twitter. He didn't get it. Then the gym that he's working out is by my house, and I had done a bunch of video work for them before. So I go up to the gym, and I'm trying to, go through proper protocol. And I did some football work for them a couple years ago for their NFL pre-draft stuff. And the guy was, oh, yeah, just we got to send it up the command of chain, the chain of commands. And so I sent the email proposal like, hey, if you give me access to Gigi Jackson, I'll create social media content for you for free. And they haven't gotten back to me. I'm pretty sure they will. But anyway, so I go to another gym on Tuesday. Walk in, first person I see is Gigi. And so after it was over, I went to introduce myself to the people that were with him. And Gigi's working out. So when he sits down, introduce myself, say, hey man, I'm Rafael Barlowe. He says, Rafael Barlowe. He's like, where do I know the name from? And he's like, oh, I know exactly who you are. And he gives me like this big handshake. But it was just this happy go lucky personality. I mean, he's energetic. There's no sense of entitlement. Like, I've been around a gazillion of these guys. Some of them have a sense of entitlement. Some, they know, in not a bad way, but they just know, like, I'm the guy. I've been the guy. He is like this innocent kid that is still like amazed by everything that is coming. I mean, the next day he had a workout. I came in, I had my son with me, and in between breaks, stops, hey, gives me a handshake, gives my son a pound. He's talking. I mean, I'm a fan of his as a person now, like I am a player, because I mean the kid has been great, and the narratives of him, whatever, I don't get it. So I even asked him. I said, hey, ESPN has you at 27. In your opinion, why? And he was honest. He said, oh, probably because I had bad body language throughout the season and I did some dumb stuff on social media. That's exactly what he says. Matter of factly, it wasn't coached. There was nobody around him, telling him to say that. But this is exactly what he says. Is, oh, I just had some bad body language. And I'm looking forward to getting him on here to kind of share his thoughts. But from what I saw from him, skill-wise, you can't convince me. There are 10 more skilled and talented players in this class. What has been your thoughts on his skill? I know you're high on him, and I think you said that's why you still keep him. I think you have him in your top. I know in your lottery.
Yep. Yeah, I have him top 10 still. I mean, it's just he's probably 6'9", give or take an inch. It really doesn't even matter that just being at that level with the athleticism and creation ability. And let's not forget, this guy is a good defender. I know, kind of like you said, the body language, he chose not to be a great defender, but I mean, he was the Peach Jam defensive player of the tournament. Like, he is this all-around forward, which I think is one of the most valuable archetypes. That is what he is. And as he gets older and matures physically and mentally, that's going to be something where that upside is top 3. It's not top 5, it's top 3. I mean, when you look at Victor Wembanyama, obviously is going to have number 1. Scoot Henderson, I think, is right there. I think there's a really strong argument. Gigi Jackson has the 3rd best upside in this class if he is.
Yeah, I actually talked to a scout today because he saw, like, I had these tweets of Gigi. And I know, like, one tweet I posted of him doing some ball handling stuff, not necessarily stuff he'll do in the game, but just showing the footwork, the coordination, the athleticism, the ball handling. And a scout called me, and he works for a team that is in the lottery. And he's like, all these mocks have us slated to take players in this range. And I was like, I think Gigi has more upside. And he said the hard part about this is that if we're expected to take guys in this range, it's almost like in our front office may play it safe by taking those guys, because if that guy doesn't necessarily work out, it's on the player. But if we take Gigi and nobody else has him and it doesn't work out, it's on us. And I was like, that's a tough situation. But I said I would gamble on Gigi. All right, let's talk about. Let's get to the main part of this mock draft. ESPN still has Brandon Miller at number 2 over Scoot Henderson. And where do you have Scoot on your board?
I've still got him too. I mean, we've talked about this before, and it's just, look, even if I think you're low on him, I don't think he can be lower than 3 or 4 on a board, just because guard's the most valuable position. I think he's a professional on and off the court. I think that's something that a lot of people will be surprised about. Everything I've heard and read, I mean, in every interview I've watched of him, Pro Insight actually just dropped something on him, and it was really appealing. Just how amazing the coaches speak of him, and how professional he is. He's very self-aware, kind of like the Gigi Jackson thing. Like, I think that stuff's very underrated. A lot of guys think that they don't have flaws. I mean, he knows what he has to get better at. He knows where he went wrong, things like that. And then you actually talk about the skills moving away from the intangibles. I mean, just insane athleticism. I think his shot is going to be good. And who knows about defense? I don't see it really being far below average if it's bad. And I don't necessarily think it's going to be, I think it's not going to be bad. But like, I don't really know what to make of it because the G League's very difficult to evaluate defense for the most part. So for me, that's just a complete guard. He's a very easy player as a starting kit to rebuilding your franchise.
Yeah, I had a very, very interesting conversation on the Scoot Brandon Miller debate. I'll talk about that when we return, but let's talk about eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is the perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With the eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. So just add your ride to my garage and look for the green check to know that the part will fit or your money back, because it's just like in sports. Confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it is easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only and exclusions apply. Thank you for making the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen every day. Now, if you're an everyday listener, tomorrow on the show, Richard will be back and he is going to give us his latest big board. So I'm looking forward to that. All right, let's start the second segment by finishing up the Brandon Miller Scoot conversation. So I had this, I say it was like an hour conversation, pros and cons about Scoot and Brandon. And so the person I was speaking with is very pro Scoot. And, I mentioned like, he struggled in the second half of the year. I want to say it was like 37% from the floor or 39% from the floor, 27% from three. He looked a little bit bored. And is that an issue with the G League when you have in February, especially with two-way contracts, guys realize that they're not going to get called up. So some guys aren't necessarily feeling like they're playing for anything. And then I mentioned that while Scoot's numbers declined, Leonard Miller and City Sissoko's numbers skyrocketed. Leonard Miller had a great March. So I feel like that could hurt Scoot in a sense, because it looked like he kind of took his foot off the gas while those guys stepped up. So he mentioned, oh, well, those guys still had more to prove. And then I said, some people may choose Brandon Miller because they feel like, the wing is a very valuable position. There's more defensive versatility, and there are bigger games in college basketball. And so the guy was like, well, if you take Brandon Miller's if you take Brandon Miller's games against the best competition, he did not look good. And then he mentioned that it's unfair to penalize Scoot for maybe taking his foot off the gas in the G League, because he said sometimes it may be hard to get up for playing in an arena with 200 people as opposed to playing in an environment where it's packed and there's pressure. And so he went back to saying, like, when he had a game where everyone was watching, he put on a show. And he said, if you just take out all bias and just watch that first game between Victor and Scoot, there's no way you would say that there's a wide gap between Victor and Scoot. And now all of a sudden people are saying that Victor is much higher than Scoot, and now Brandon Miller could pass Scoot. So what are your thoughts on that argument?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's hard to, we've been to G League games. The atmosphere is not.
Well, we've been to Texas Legends games, which is
True.
like the largest crowd in the G League. Now the kids may be playing, on bounce houses and all that, but there's a crowd there. There is noise there.
And it's
other G League teams, it's like nobody
quiet.
There. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the way I see it is I believe in that whole thing where it's like, look, when Scoot wants to be the best player on the court, he is far and away the best player. And I don't think it's a motor issue. I don't think that's like what you should be thinking when you hear that kind of stuff. I think it's just why put that grind and put the mileage on your body. I was fine with them shutting him down. I think it was look for the number 2 spot. I think he should have gone out there and just killed it in March. That would have been awesome. But also, I think he's going to kill it in workouts and still solidify himself as number 2.
Yeah, and I wonder how many workouts he actually attends. If I don't know, let's say Houston and San Antonio have the 2nd and 3rd pick, does it make sense for him to go to Charlotte if they have the 4th pick, or Portland if they're the 5th pick, or so on, Orlando? It'll be interesting. And actually, I had another person tell me that they would take Amin Thompson ahead of Brandon Miller. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, it's the same thing with Gigi. Like, if that blows up in your face, the team looks foolish. If you're the team that it's the same thing. You get him at 5, it's great value. You get him at 2, and he misses like both of those. It's kind of, he misses at 5, he could have missed. At 2, it's like, dang, he could have missed and you still took him. Like, there's red flags around him. I think he's going to be great. I personally just wouldn't take him in front of Scoot Henderson, but just because like the known floor is just so much higher for Scoot. That's really just a philosophical thing for me, but I don't think that's egregious.
And the guy I talked to was definitely pro Scoot, and he said, if you look at every elite athlete point guard in the last 10 to 15 years, except from Derrick Rose to John Wall, he like Scoot is a better shooter than those guys at the same stage, despite the fact that he has huge room to grow as a shooter. All right, so ESPN has Portland Trailblazers selecting Jarris Walker at 5. Would you take Walker that high at number 5?
Not for Portland, because it really depends on what Portland's doing. I'm a believer in, if they don't get Wembanyama, Damian Lillard's gone, and at that point, Jarris Walker's not going to solve your issues. I think maybe if you believe in him just hitting his upside and everything, it's hard to say for whoever gets 5, it's going to be, or whoever gets Jarris, it's going to be team dependent. If you're a team that's clearly on the up and up, you probably want him. Like, I think he'd be good in Orlando. He'd be good in a lot of those teams that are in that 5 to 8 mix. I mean, you look at Indiana, Washington trying to get over the hump. I mean, even Charlotte, they're at 4, so I think it's a bit of a reach. But just speaking generally here, Portland is like, that part I didn't like was just the fit of team. But like, also, if Damian Lillard does stay, he actually probably is a day 1 contributor at a really high level. Like, I think he'd be all rookie next to Damian Lillard. So it's a tough balance, right?
Here's something. I proposed it on Twitter. People thought I was an idiot, but I don't care. To me, the team that makes the most sense for Damian Lillard, if I'm Portland Trailblazers, if I'm the general manager of Portland Trailblazers, of course, I want to put Dame in a good situation, but my first call is the Orlando Magic. That is my first call. Give me those 2 lottery picks and Jonathan Isaac. I mean, we've probably got to make something, the numbers work. I know Dame is making $1 gazillion, but do you think Dame could have a similar impact? Maybe not as much, but a similar impact that Chris Paul had on Phoenix? Not saying straight to the finals, but I think Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero are pretty good. Wendell Carter.
They already made, I think it was a 16-win jump or something, 14-win jump.
I think it was 12 or 14.
12.
And that's after a terrible start. Like, they were like 5 and 16
5 and 20.
or something. Yeah,
5 and 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I made the tweet. I don't know why I don't have it anymore. I can't find it. But like, I put out a tweet of the teams that made the biggest jump over the last year, and they were one of them. They were one of the teams that made an absolute massive jump. I think they had the 2nd most wins, or 3rd. So yeah, it was 12. Sacramento at 18, Oklahoma at 16, Oklahoma City at 16, the Magic at 12. Look, they won 34 games this year, and they probably could have won 1 or 2 more from the last games when they just threw it away. This is a team that goes close to 50 wins. I mean, it wouldn't shock me. Like, 18 wins that Sacramento made, you could inch towards that. I don't think they're 52 wins, but they're 48, 49, 50 with Damian Lillard.
Yeah. And Banchero would arguably be the best player that Dame has played with. I mean, CJ was very, very good, but there's a different dynamic there with Banchero. I think Franz is good. Both are 21 and under. I think Wendell Carter is good. And I think once they have a like defined pecking order, I think Orlando could be really good. Now,
Yep.
2 lottery picks and Jonathan Isaac, that means Portland would have, and I don't even know if this can actually work out, but that means Portland would have 3 potential lottery picks. Now,
Yeah.
with 3 potential lottery picks, you can, I mean, obviously you want to go number 1, but I mean, that could put you in the range of maybe Scoot, Brandon Miller. If not, you can get one of the Thompson twins. You can get Cam Whitmore. Like you could have, if this class is good, they end up turning out good. You can set your rebuild, and you already have Ant Simons there, Shaden Sharp. You can do well for yourself if you're Portland. But some people are like, that doesn't make sense. And they're like, well, trade Dame to Miami. I'm like, if I'm looking at Portland, Miami's roster, I'm like, if you're not giving me Bam, if you're not giving me,
I mean, Hero,
all
but
right, Hero and who
Hero
else?
and Simons
Duncan,
isn't going to take you far.
yeah,
Like
Hero and
the
Duncan
defense.
Robinson and what? Omar Yurtseven? What does Miami have to offer that is better than Orlando? So that would be my
And
choice.
I'm just saying, Orlando's consolidating this year. Like I'm all in on that idea. They have too many cooks in the kitchen. Like you said, they need a pecking order.
Yep. All right, when we return, we still, I mean, we've only got to the 5th pick. All right. But Grand Slams, no hitters, and double plays are back, and there's no better place to get in on Major League Baseball action than FanDuel, which is America's #1 sports book. That's because right now, new customers can step up to the plate with a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Just go to FanDuel.com/locked-on, sign up, place your first bet, and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win. So what bets would you like to make? Does Aaron Judge pick up where he left off? So don't miss your chance to get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/locked-on to sign up. FanDuel, which is the official sportsbook partner of Major League Baseball and Locked On. All right, last segment. We've kind of got off course a little bit here, talking about trades and so on. I'll just name some names on ESPN's draft, and then you tell me, in your opinion, do you think it's too high or too low? All right, they have Asar Thompson at number 6. Now, if I'm not mistaken, have you been going back and forth on Asar? Like, I know sometimes it seems like you like him, and sometimes you have like some really, really big concerns outside of the shooting.
I see bust potential, but at the same time, I see the defense is just outstanding. I mean, I've had a coach at Overtime Elite tell me, I mean, he's the best defender he's ever seen. And things like that are going to keep you in the league. I think he's got a moderately safe floor. I think the upside is just severely overrated, and I'm just having a hard time balancing that. So look, if I'm Orlando, I think I'd rather have Cam Whitmore, who goes 7, but I'm probably okay with Thompson because the defense is just that good.
Cam Whitmore at 7. Is that something that
I love that fit.
You like that
with
fit?
Rick Carlisle, that is just perfect.
Anthony Black at 8.
I thought that was interesting. I think I can buy into it because the Wizards kind of need the swing. I think Anthony Black's a guy that he's either going to be great or he's going to be like a fine backup. And I think he's more likely to be great than that fine backup. 6'7". I think he's got underrated explosion. He's a good defender. He can switch. I think he's going to be good.
All right, Grady Dick at number 9.
I think this is a hot take, but I actually like it. I think his shooting ability and just overall basketball IQ is just going to be so damn good next to the already good young core with Will Hardy too as his coach. I think that's just a match made in heaven.
Man, I actually have Grady Dick at number 18 on my mock. And when I saw Grady Dick and I compared him to, like, all right, let's say Taylor Hendricks, I'm like, all right, best case scenario, if Grady Dick maximizes his potential and Taylor Hendricks maximizes his potential, who's going to be the more impact player?
I mean, it's Taylor.
So I would say Taylor. So it's like, bang, all right, Grady goes down. Then it's like Jordan Hawkins. If he maximizes as coming off screens or whatever, then I think that if he can put together a little bit more of, he's a good athlete, the ball handling, you can say that's 50-50. But then I'm like, Nick Smith. If Nick Smith maximizes his potential and Grady maximizes his potential, who's going to be the better player? I'm like, in my opinion, I'm like, Nick Smith. Okay, so Grady goes down even more. Keontae, same thing. So I kept going down the list, Kaysen, all of these guys, Hood Schifino, that if they maximize it, I think they have a higher upside than Grady Dick. So that's why he kind of fell. I mean, even to me, like Derek Lively. If Lively is Gobert, it's a 10-year starting center,
All defense.
all defense. He might have a bigger impact. So that's why I have Grady at number 18, which is probably gonna hurt me when I'm trying to do these this workout series at 101s, and the agency's gonna be like, wait a minute. No, you don't have access to him. So anyway, so you like Grady at number 9.
Yeah. Yep.
What about Taylor at Dallas at 10?
10 out
It's
of
almost
10.
like
No
every
pun
mock
intended.
has that. Every single mock has him at number 10.
It's a match made in heaven. Like he fits every single thing the Mavs need.
But will Jason Kidd play him?
Has to. He has to. Yeah, I don't think that'll come up.
So they had Jordan Hawkins at number 11, and I spoke with someone today, and they were like, what's the highest I've seen? And I said, ESPN had him at number 11 is the highest that I've seen. And they were asking me a comparison. I couldn't think of a comparison. I was like, maybe it sounds lazy, but is it Rip Hamilton with more range? Malik Monk? I don't know. I couldn't think of a comparison for him.
I think he's hard. I mean, he's just the only person that keeps coming in my head because like I think of the just lights out quick shooting. It's not a 1-to-1, but like shades of Gary Trent Jr. is a guy who I think of where there's similarities. I don't think it's a 1-to-1, but the shades of
JJ Redick.
Yeah,
I like the cross racial comparisons.
Yeah, you're one of the few that'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's super lazy. Like, I mean, I saw Cooper Flag this weekend, right? And I thought he was incredible. And someone sent me a message, and they're like, Henry Ellison, what's the kid's name? Leif. What's the kid's name?
Leif Thulin?
No, TJ Leaf. They named like all of these guys that were white that didn't make it. I'm just like, that is such a lazy comparison.
TJ Leaf, man, that's bad.
Yeah. So anyway, all right, Nick Smith at number 12. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a reach. Like you said, yeah, if he hits his upside, but his upside's really far. Like from where he is now, he is a very far ways away from that. Now, Oklahoma City is probably the perfect spot for him to absolutely make me sound stupid. But I do think that just his role, there's so many of those guys out there. You can probably find someone like the next pick who does a little bit better at it.
Yeah, I'm hoping I get a sit-down interview with him. One of the plans that I have for this whole series I'm doing is allowing the athletes to put things into context with their own words. And I want to hear his version of what happened. Like I talked to Keontae George, there's an article coming out tomorrow, and I was asking him about his season, and he had mentioned that his ankle was so bad that it was heavily taped. One foot was heavier than the other. He couldn't cut. He couldn't move. He was playing, I don't want to say he was playing overweight, but I guess the pressure as a freshman in the Big 12, you need to bulk up because it's not a freshman type league. He was playing at a weight that he wasn't comfortable at. And he said that impacted like his, just how he moved and his bounce and all that. And it makes sense when you put it into context, especially if you watched Keontae before and you saw that. I mean, I've seen him like jump over somebody and dunk, and I've seen the athleticism, and like the knock on him is like, oh, he's not a good athlete. So we talked about that in the interview. It was pretty cool. It was just a very candid interview where he just talked about a lot of different things. So I set out to say this. I want to hear like from Nick Smith, like what was going on with his knee. Like, was he, I mean, I don't think anybody assumed he's 100%, but just kind of get his thoughts on why he chose to play and risk his draft stock, knowing that he wasn't going to look good. And then maybe that could sway how I feel about it. Because like with Keontae, I had no clue. Some other people told me, but I had no clue that he was like 20 pounds over his ideal playing weight. And I mean, I look at like, imagine playing with a 20-pound weight vest, how much that will impact your game. All right, so we left off at Nick Smith. They have Keontae at 13. What are your thoughts on that?
It's good value. I also think it's pretty realistic too. Um, I think it's hard because he was injured, right, for a good portion of the season and he played through it. It's a tale of two seasons, and that's going to hold him back. Like whether or not it's fair, it's just how teams are going to view him.
Yep. And then they have Kaysen at 14. I have Kaysen at number 6.
I think, look, I think that could happen too because Tyrese Maxey went what 21st, and just these Kentucky guards get hidden. And I think while Kaysen is, I think he's got a very strong argument being the best defensive guard in this class. The offense probably doesn't have enough just massive wows for teams, I think, and that's what holds him back from being that top 10 guy on every board. Now, that being said, I do think that having him top 10 is a very good, just a good idea because he's going to return immediate value and he's going to get a lot better.
Yeah, Scout told me every coach, once the coaches kind of get involved, they're going to want Kaysen.
Yep.
So, they have Hood Schifino at 15. I like it. I think I have him at 17 on mine. Atlanta's a terrible fit for him in a sense. I think Atlanta's a terrible fit for everybody unless they do some type of consolidating or change things up. And to me, Atlanta winning the play-in, I mean, it depends on what happens in the Boston series, but I think Atlanta has some tough decisions to make. I think if they didn't make the playoffs, then it could give the front office, I guess, new front office, some time to really kind of blow things up. But if they have a little bit of success with the new coach and Quinn Snyder, then I could see them saying, you know what, we can run it back. Last year's issues was all on Nate McMillan and not necessarily and blow the team up. But Hill Schifino to Atlanta would be a terrible fit, in my opinion. They have Noah Clowney at 16. What are your thoughts on Clowney? He seems like he's the biggest riser.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen. I think he's just that ideal guy. He's young. He's not even 19 years old and won't be 19 on draft night. He's a stretch big who can defend and protect the rim too. I think he's just that archetype is so rare. Given his age, he's going to climb up. And I think 16 is pretty accurate.
I think Clowney and Lively have the same agent. And it'd be interesting to see if they both end up in a certain range. I think most people have going anywhere between 15 through 30.
Yep.
But I'm wondering which one, if one rises and the other doesn't, I wonder which one would it be. They have Jet Howard at 17. What are your thoughts on that?
That's an unfair fit. That goes to the Lakers. That's a really unfair fit. I think he's being I'm lower on Jet Howard, but also at the same time, he played through some injuries down the stretch of the season and kind of cost him. Now that being said, I think LeBron's probably the perfect player for him. He played with Jet's dad, and I think he would be able to tone him down because Jet Howard's biggest criticism for me is that he tried doing too much and had too big of a leash at Michigan.
Yeah, someone did mention to me how he would respond to NBA adversity is their biggest concern. And then Miami, or ESPN has Miami selecting Ryan Rupert at number 18. What are your thoughts on that? And I'll add, because I've been around Ryan every day for the last 2 weeks.
He's a Heat guy. I think he's a guy who you look at his size and wingspan. I think he's 6'7" with a 7+ foot wingspan.
7'3".
Yeah, that's insane. The defense alone is going to translate. I trust his ball skills. I don't think his shot is broken. Well, I've seen a lot of people very out on it. I don't see why. Maybe I don't know. But I don't think there's percentages that are that bad. But I may just have to double check.
Yeah, the percentages were bad. 27% from 3. But he broke his right wrist. He missed 2 months of the season with a broken wrist. Like I said, I've been around him, watched him work out I'd say I met him last Monday. So I've probably seen him work out 10 times because he's doing 2 a day. So I've seen a lot. The shot is coming in long. When I first saw him, I thought there was kind of a hitch in his shot. I thought he had a long motion. He's sharpened that. But he's shooting a lot of shots. He's getting up in the morning working out. He's working with Tim Martin. They're working on different ball handling, finishes, tons of shots. And then he goes in at night and he shoots about 500 shots on the gun. The shot is getting better. But the thing that I noticed about him from watching him play like 2-on-2, 3-on-3, and even talking to him, and I posted an interview a couple of days ago. He, on one hand, he's fine with the 3-and-D role, but he was a point guard before. So he does have the ball handling skills, the passing. I watched him play 3-on-3 today with some other guys preparing for the draft. He made some good reads. He could be someone that, and the comparison is Mikal Bridges. So he could be someone that early in his career, he gets placed into this 3-and-D role. And then he could be like Bridges in a sense where he moves or the situation changes around him. And you're like, I didn't know he had all that in his game. But I really like what I've seen out of Rupert. All right, wrapping up and looking at ESPN's list based off of what you see. Who was the biggest surprise in their first round for you, other than Gigi at number 27?
I think there's two guys that are tied. Dariq Whitehead at 24 is shocking to me. That's a steal if the Kings got him. And then Kobe Buffkin at 22. I think both guys are, honestly, I would take both in the lottery.
Yeah, someone made a point, and I've been hearing it a lot lately. Kobe Buffkin, what makes Nick, Keontae, Kaysen, Anthony Black, what makes those guys better than Kobe Buffkin? Is it the fact that they had the hype coming in because he's really like the same age? He's even younger than some of the freshmen in his class. So that is interesting. All right, the last one, Dillon Mitchell. Real quick, what are your thoughts on Dillon Mitchell? They have him at number 31.
I was shocked. Four picks, after Gigi Jackson. Look, he doesn't do much right now. He's athletic and he defends, that does have value. It reminds me just how Peyton Watson stuck around. That was his exact traits. Peyton Watson had a much worse season, but Dillon Mitchell, his shot is completely busted and he's got to rework it. And that sounds worse than I mean for it to be, but like that's far and away his biggest weakness. I think he's a big project and I don't see a team swinging at 31 for him. I think you can get him at 40.
They might, man. I don't know. There's no point in going to college. If he's a first round pick, I'm just telling everybody in next year's class, just don't even go to school. Just you're going to be a top pick based off of their rankings. So
it'd be back-to-back years.
Yeah. All right. Well, that wraps it up. Thank you for making Locked On NBA Big Boy your first listen every day. Now, if you're an everyday listener, tomorrow on the show, Richard is going to drop off his latest big board. Stay tuned. Once again, it's Rafael Barlowe, Richard Stayman, and we are out.